Who is the average fountain pen enthusiast? And how would your description of a pen nerd today differ from one 10 years ago? Before I answer either of your two questions, I had a debate yesterday with Drew about like, what's the difference between a geek and a nerd? And it was really funny because both he and I thought the exact opposite of each other. But seeing as how Drew probably lives more in that world than I do, I would trust his interpretation of it. He says nerd is more of a trendy term these days. But anyway, so nerd. So yeah, I'll take this pen nerd thing as a compliment, and I think I would probably fit into this category, right? Average fountain pen enthusiast. So I think there's a lot of assumptions to be made here because there's honestly just such a spread of people that are into fountain pens. You know, it's not like it's any one particular group, one particular demographic, one particular geographic location or anything like that. It's really all over the place. You know, I'll give you my best guess, but there's not like a formal research or organization that puts out information on, hey, these are fountain pen people and these are all the breakdowns of who they are and what they like and all this kind of thing. You know, even as our business has grown and I've tried to get a more formal, like kind of official understanding, we've always had a very grassroots understanding of kind of who the pen community is, very diverse group. But even trying to understand like through like more formal official like business reports and stuff like that, there's just no reporting information on fountain pen users. It kind of gets lumped into like office supplies or, you know, luxury gift or pen, you know, luxury pen type thing. And it's like, like, are fountain pens really like luxury pens? Like, I guess it kind of gets lumped into that, but then you're kind of thrown into the, you know, Cartier and Mont Blanc and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that doesn't really nail it for most of the core of what I think we would consider to be the hardcore pen using community. For me, I think I'm just going to give my assessment based on like kind of some of the analytics that we have based on our audiences on different channels, or which are all kind of conglomerated and generalized. No like specific identifying information towards any one individual, but you know, there's some like Google Analytics type information and stuff on YouTube about like generally like how old are people that watch our videos and this type of thing. So I have somewhat of an idea, but nothing like super exactly targeted. I think most people so there's like some kind of formal information, and then there's also just very, you know, qualitative information we have just from being in the community, observing, going to pen shows, talking to our customers, being on our social channels and stuff like that, and kind of assessing from there. So I'm going to just kind of mash all of that stuff together with no real formality to it and just kind of give you my assessment, right? So most of it is working professionals, I think, generally speaking. Most often, probably higher educated, you know, or have completed some sort of formal education. I think there's kind of a bell curve in terms of the age, at least of our customers, that kind of the peak of the bell curve is like 25 to 45 years old. You know, that's kind of, especially being like the working professionals, that's kind of like the peak of kind of who's in that. Certainly there are plenty of people who are, you know, maybe older and you know, have been introduced into fountain pens, you know, a long time ago. But there's people that are certainly like much older that used fountain pens, you know, 40, 50 years ago when they were in school. But I wouldn't necessarily say that all of them are fountain pen enthusiasts to this day, right? Like certainly it's stuck with some people and they're still kind of into it and stuff like that, and they have more familiarity with it. But it's definitely not like, okay, everybody who's over a certain age is a fountain pen enthusiast because they grew up with it in school. A lot of people have just abandoned it and haven't touched a fountain pen in 40 years. I wouldn't put them into the group of fountain pen enthusiasts. So, you know, yes, definitely there are some people who are more experienced in life that had exposure to it younger. But I think, you know, because we focus so much on social media, internet-based stuff, education, we really try to draw a lot of new people into the hobby. That probably is going to skew it a little on the younger side. You know, I am 34 years old, so I'm kind of like right in the middle of the bell curve there myself, being a working professional. So I think I would probably represent, and I probably attract more people, you know, kind of similar to my own lifestyle demographic, stuff like that. I wouldn't imagine that is too far of a stretch. So there you go. I think geographically, very dispersed, kind of all over the place. Tend to maybe congregate more in metropolitan areas, but that might just be because they're more populated areas anyway. It really is just all over the place. I know plenty of people who live in the middle of nowhere in Kansas that are huge fans, and then there's plenty of people who live in apartments in New York City and Los Angeles and these types of things. Of course, these are all generalizations, but that's kind of some of my assessment. So I think to hit on the second part of your question, how would your description of a pen nerd today differ from one 10 years ago? The biggest change I think that's happened is you get people who are younger, certainly, because it's not necessarily just people who grew up with them in school or just people who kind of have pens as maybe a status thing, so that like not people who are like further along in their career and can afford that Mont Blanc pen, whatever, because that was for a while there, that was like the sign of being, having made it kind of thing. I think now you're seeing a lot of people who, stumble across YouTube videos or on Instagram or blogs or whatever it might be, who are getting introduced to them at a younger age than maybe has happened in the last 10 years ago. For sure, I think that has definitely skewed the age younger, especially if you've gone to pen shows regularly. You go now, because I've actually been going to pen shows now for 10 years, seeing the difference in age demographic between people going to shows now versus 10 years ago, definitely way younger, which is awesome to see. And then I think another big difference too is people that are actually writing with and using their pens as opposed to just buying and collecting. So it's not just, hey, there's a limited edition pen, I'm going to buy it, hold it as an investment, or just collect it because I like it. There's just still plenty of that going on, but there's a lot of people that are, inking up and using their pens regularly. That I think is far more common. The people who are just hardcore pen users have come on the rise in the last 10 years. So that's been my kind of casual observation about them all. Maybe you disagree, maybe you don't. And it may be different. Another retailer may have a different perspective on it based on kind of the way they do things or who, gets attracted to different businesses and stuff like that. But this is very much coming from like my brain specifically, kind of from everything I've taken in and some of that. So it's kind of interesting.